Yo, 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 what's going on, guys? It's Buns. Welcome back to the Road to Gladiator. Today, I'm going to be doing a class breakdown on one of the specs that got a complete revamp in Legion, and that is Demonology Warlocks. So, among many other specs during this expansion, there were some that got completely changed, revamped. One of those happened to be Demonology Warlocks because of the introduction of Demon Hunters, where Blizzard wanted to take Demon Hunters down the path of them having the ability to actually transform into demons. They decided that they were going to make Demonology Warlocks about summoning demons. So, just like many of you guys, I was in a spot where I'm like, wow, they have all these new spells. I don't really know what's going on with the class, and I want to get a better idea for what's going on so I know how to deal with them a little bit more efficiently, because I don't play one. So I thought that would be helpful for you guys as well too on a new spec in the game to get a great amount of knowledge as to what's going on with them. So let's break into it, and I'm going to start with their main abilities as there was a lot of changes. Now, the first ability has pretty much no change whatsoever, and that is Shadow Bolt. Shadow Bolt's a spammable spell that you can use. It gives 1 soul shard, and it does an okay amount of damage. So it's just their way to ramp up soul shards if they need to do that. Try to be efficient about it. It's there for you. The second spell is Hand to Gul'dan. Now, for anyone that knew what Hand to Gul'dan did in the past, Hand to Gul'dan got a huge change. Hand to Gul'dan is now a casted spell that can cost anywhere from 1 to 4 soul shards, and it depends on how many soul shards you have. Holy cow, that is hard to say, but it does depend on how many soul shards that you have, and anywhere from 1 to 4. Now, if you use it at 4 soul shards, you will do the most amount of damage. It is a casted spell that's 1.5 seconds that's going to hit your main target and also targets within 8 yards with a meteor that does damage, and it also summons wild imps. Now, the amount of wild imps is completely dependent on how many soul shards you use. So, in the case that you use 4, you're going to have 4 wild imps that come out that also do damage for you as a warlock. It's a great way for you to summon out pets to do consistent damage, but it also ties into some abilities that I'll break into a little bit later on the video that help you get some huge burst. So when you see Hand to Gul'dan, think you're going to take a little bit of damage, but is getting out pets for them, which is doing consistent damage, and it sets them up for some big burst with Implosion. So, Hand to Gul'dan, completely revamped, big part of Demonology Warlocks for getting their imps out. Now, on top of that, you have Demonic Empowerment. And Demonic Empowerment is a casted ability, also 1.5 seconds, that when you have your demons out and summoned, it increases their health by 50%, their haste by 50%, and also tied into the mastery for Demonology Warlocks, which is Master Demonologist. It also increases their damage as well, too, by your mastery percentage. So you have quite a lot of benefit for pretty much every single time you see warlocks summoning pets out. They're going to want to use Demonic Empowerment to make sure their pets are charged up and are doing a lot of damage. It's a good way for consistent damage, and it also helps with their burst as well too, a little bit later on, which I'll jump into. Now, we also have another new spell called Dreadstalkers, and called Dreadstalkers is going to work a little bit differently depending on which build you go. There's a build where you can go where they're instant cast and they're summoned, but baseline, it also is a 2-second cast. So it's something that you have to cast, and it gets 2 Dreadstalkers out. And these are also other pets that you can get out, which can also be empowered by the Demonology Warlock to get more consistent damage, more pet damage. So it's very much like a BM Hunter, and that's what I wanted to compare it to. If you guys wanted to have some sort of comparison, you're summoning out a lot of pets for consistent damage, and it can also lead up to huge burst with some combo abilities that I'll break into a little bit later. The third ability that we got to go into here today that's a ability that really didn't see too much change is Doom. Now, where Doom used to be this dot that sat on the target for a minute now, it doesn't nearly last that long. It's a 20-second dot that you can put up on target, and it also generates 1 soul shard. So this is something that the Demonology Warlock's going to spread across targets for kind of consistent damage and also help them out get some soul shards to summon out pets and use some of their other abilities like Hand to Gul'dan. Combo those abilities together. Finally, those are your big main core baseline abilities that you're going to have as Demonology Warlock. Now, I want to address probably a question that a lot of you guys have run into so far in your PvP adventures. That is, why are Demonology Warlocks so tanky? Why can I not chunk through them? And there's a really good reason for that. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about is Soul Link. Now, Soul Link is a passive that you get at level 42 for Demonology Warlocks, and 20% of all damage you take is taken by your demon instead. So it's kind of like the Unholy DK pet sacrifice ability that they have, which it takes 90% in that case scenarios, but Warlocks have this passive baseline 20% of all the damage that they take is going on their demon instead, which is really strong. It kind of works as a defensive stance that's being transferred to an off target, which is really strong. Now, on top of that, there's a second part of the tooltip called Soul Leech, and I didn't know what this ability was, so I had to go look up what was Soul Leech. So, Soul Leech itself is based on how much damage the Warlock is doing with his single target spells, it will grant an absorb shield for 10% of the damage dealt. So let's say that you hit someone for 1,000,000 damage, theoretically, right? It's going to give you 100k back in absorption, and this can go up to 15% of your maximum health. So this is Soul Leech, and tying this back into Soul Link, there is a second part of Soul Link which says that Soul Leech also heals you for 25% and your pet for 50% of the absorption it grants. So in the case scenario that we get 100k absorption back, we're also going to get healed for 25% of that, so 25k, and our pet's going to get a 50k heal too. So you can see where, your pet's not really even taking damage, you're getting a lot of heals back, it's really efficient. That spell alone makes Demonology Warlocks very tanky. But on top of that, we also have a talent that is available that's Dark Pact. Dark Pact sacrifices 20% of your demon's current health to grant a shield for you that does 400% of the sacrificed health. That is mind-blowing. So it's a massive shield that they can drop on themselves for sacrificing a little bit of health from your demon. And if you don't have a demon available, it'll take the health from yourself. So if the Warlock's topped up, it might not even be as big of a deal, but a lot of times you're going to have your pet out, and it's a very efficient way to put a huge shield on you. It's only a minute cooldown, too, so it's just nutty to have that amount of mitigation, absorption on a Warlock that's really difficult to chunk through. Those are the two big abilities that you're going to want to watch for. And to tie it in, something that I want to tie in too with Soul Link is there is an ability that you can take in your 45 row of your normal talents called Demon Skin. Now, this changes how your Soul Link and your Soul Leech work specifically. If you go this route, Soul Leech absorption now passively recharges at 1% of maximum health every second. So you are just getting constant absorption, constant shielding, and it also increases the cap of absorption from 15% to 20%. So it's just a lot of healing, a lot of absorption if you go that route. Now, the one interesting thing that I want to note is if you do play a Demonology Warlock that's using Demon Skin, the good thing about that is that this is in their row where they have to take a CC option. So this means that if they're Demon Skin, they don't have Mortal Coil, or if they don't have Shadow Fury. And if for any reason you see a Demonology Warlock use Mortal Coil or Shadow Fury, you know that they're not going to be quite as tanky because they don't have Demon Skin. So it does give you a little bit of identity of, okay, oh, hey, I saw this guy he used Mortal Coil. Hey, maybe he's a little bit better of a target for us to go. Because in most cases, I think most Demonology Warlocks that I've played so far on the ladder and have seen at endgame PvP are using Demon Skin because it's just so good, it's so tanky. And the big thing about Demonology Warlocks over a lot of other casters in the game is they very much are a zoning caster. They very much dictate where people on the map have to stand. So it's okay for them not to have a ton of instant cast CC because they don't really need it. They're just a huge tower of tankiness that you kind of have to respect, and Demon Skin is a big part that plays into that. Now, just like the Demon Skin choice that you have in your 45 row, I want to also break down some other choices that Demonology Warlocks are making that will help you recognize what build they are going, as there are a lot of different viable builds as Demonology Warlock, and I think first and foremost, the big ability that I want to cover is what am I getting blown up for 50% of my health instantaneously, and why am I dying? Now, this is the choice between running Implosion or Improved Dreadstalkers, which is in your second row, your 30 row of your normal talents. Now, if you play Improved Dreadstalkers, this is going to be a more sustained damage build. You're playing the long game. You're not really looking for that burst kill. Call Dreadstalkers now also summons 2 Wild Imps, which is good. Because when you're using your Call Dreadstalkers, it's getting more imps out, more consistent damage, just more pressure, which is going to feed into playing a longer paced game where you have a lot of pets out and just kind of wear out the enemy team, as opposed to Implosion, which Implosion takes all of your wild imps that you have summoned and explodes them onto the target and anyone around within 8 yards for a huge amount of damage. Massive amount of damage. The more imps you have, the more damage you're going to do. And you can see that if you see a warlock, how do we make the recognition of whether or not they're playing improved Dreadstalkers versus Implosion? Now, if you're really paying attention, watch when they're casting Dreadstalkers, right? If you see them cast Dreadstalkers and you see imps are summoned, you know, okay, we can chill out a little bit. They're playing the longer game. There's not going to be a huge burst. But if they do get to call Dreadstalkers off and you don't see any imps be summoned during that time as well too, you'll know immediately, okay, key in, they're playing Implosion. They have a huge amount of damage coming out. Those are your main two choices that people are taking for in PvP. And it's really helpful to be able to identify as early as possible when you're in a match which one are they choosing, because it's a very different ball game, right? You might have to save your cooldowns a little bit more for that random burst coming out with Implosion. Very, very different ball game. Now, the second ability that Demonology Warlocks have that is going to do a solid amount of damage to you is their artifact ability, and this is called Thalkeel's Consumption. Now, basically what Thalkeel's Consumption does is it takes 6% of the life from your demons that you've summoned out on the battlefield, and it channels that amount of health into the target that you select to hit. It's on a 45-second cooldown. It's a 2-second casted ability, but basically the more amount of imps, Dreadstalkers, demons, pets that you have out on the battlefield, it's going to take 6% of each of their health, combine it into one big damaging spell, and shoot it at your current target. It is a casted ability. It also has a little bit of travel time, but it does do a lot of damage. So if you line that into a Implosion on a target, they are going to take a massive amount of burst. So as a melee DPS, if you have an interrupt up for Thalkeel's Consumption, it is huge to use, as it's usually going to set up their one-shot opportunity to line the Thalkeel's Consumption into an Implosion to do massive burst damage. Watch out for that ability. It's a great way for them to do huge damage. The next row of talents I want to break into is your Grimoires. Now, this is how Warlocks are getting utility off of their big demons, and making these different choices gives a completely different flavor for what build they're going. So, the first one that is on the list is Grimoire of Supremacy, and I don't see this one quite frequently. It's probably the least played, but what it does is it allows the Warlock to maintain control over their greater demons, which is their Infernal and their Doomguard, as a permanent pet. So it gives them some more consistent pressure, a little bit more damage, but it really gets outweighed by the next two that I'm going to tell you guys, so you won't see that one too often, but if you do see something where their Infernal's out for a very long time, or the Doomguard, they may be playing with that. Now, the second two are huge. Grimoire of Service allows them on a 1.5 minute cooldown to summon out a second pet that fights for 25 seconds with 100% increased damage, but the big kicker is when they summon it out, it instantaneously uses their ability. So, for example, Fell Hunter, you can double lock people back to back with double Fell Hunter. Get your first Fell Hunter out, use it to interrupt a heal, and then use your Grimoire of Service to summon a second one out and interrupt a heal back to back. This can be huge, a massive amount of lockout pressure on a healer, really strong. So if you ever see a Warlock playing double interrupt, you know that they will not be benefiting from the other talents, whether it be Supremacy or the next one that I'm going to jump into, which is Grimoire of Synergy. Now, Grimoire of Synergy is insane. So basically, your Grimoire of Synergy allows your pet or the Warlock to increase the amount of damage they're doing by 40%. Excuse me. And it's based on whether or not the other person gets a proc. So if the Warlock is doing damage, they have a chance of getting a proc to buff their pet's damage by 40%. And vice versa. So if their pet gets the proc, it'll make the Warlock's damage increase by 40%, which is huge. And this is a massive amount of damage, whether or not it's also on the pet or the Warlock. You're getting a lot of benefit out of it. And this is something that I'm seeing a lot of people playing the damage build run consistently over time. So if you see that a Warlock is getting this buff and they're getting more damage from it, you'll know that, okay, well, I don't have to worry about the second Fell Hunter coming out. I can see that they have the Grimoire of Synergy buff up. They're doing 40% more damage. which is a lot of damage, so you still have to worry about that, but you won't have to worry about double interrupt from Fell Hunter. Vice versa, if you get double interrupted by the Fell Hunter, you know, okay, they're doing a little bit less damage. If we can recover from this situation, we'll be able to push through the rest of the match. Another row of talents that is going to identify how you're doing your damage is your 6th row in your normal talents is Demonology Warlock, and that is your choice between Summon Dark Glare, Demon Bolt, and Soul Conduit. Now, the talent that you see most often, I would say, is Soul Conduit. And Soul Conduit has a 20% chance for every Soul Shard that you spend for it to be refunded. So it's a nice way for Demonology Warlocks to have a chance to rotate through their Soul Shards more efficiently. If they use a Hand of Gul'dan, it could potentially, perfect world, you know, get all 4 back. It's a 20% chance per Soul Shard. Gives you some more efficiency for your rotation, helps you rotate your damage out better. You can also go Demon Bolt. Demon Bolt changes your Shadow Bolt into Demon Bolt, and it does a little bit more damage. It draws energy from how many demons that you have active, 20% per, and launches damage at the target. So you can absolutely go this route too. It's going to draw more off of how many demons you have active to do more damage, and it's going to be not quite as efficient as Soul Conduit, but it will give you a little bit more pressure, I would say, and work through your abilities more efficiently. Finally, you have Summon Dark Glare, which is on a 24-second cooldown. It is an eye imp that you can summon onto the ground, and for every target that you have a Doom on, it's going to do damage to that target for 12 seconds while it's active, which is good if you have spread pressure, you're just wanting to rot down a team. You can absolutely go with Summon Dark Glare, good spread pressure to keep the momentum high. Moving into the honor talents, there's also a lot of choices that a Warlock can make that's going to define their playstyle and how they can counteract their team comps. Now, the first look at this is looking into the choices that a Warlock can make choosing their curses. They have 3 available. The first choice they can make is take Curse of Tongues, which increases the casting time of all spells by that target by 30% for 10 seconds. This is on a 15-second cooldown, so it's very strong to use either on a caster or to slow down heals as well too. Very good way to put a healer behind by stopping how fast they can do their casts. The second choice they can make is they can take Curse of Weaknesses, which reduces the target's physical damage by 25% for 10 seconds on a 20-second cooldown. Great in a melee, strong, heavy meta. Very good choice for Warlocks as well too to help out their partners and themselves not take as much damage from melee. Finally, the last curse they have is very unique. It's on a much longer cooldown, a 45-second cooldown, but it reduces the target's maximum health by 20% for 10 seconds, which is really strong, and with the right comp, it can do absolutely nutty things. You just line up huge amount of bursts with not only yourself, but your teammates as well too. Land it into a consumption, implosion, plus teammate damage. You can absolutely demolish someone with that at the right time. So it just gives a little bit more insight for what the Warlock's build is identifying what curse they are playing. The next ability that I want to talk about is Casting Circle. Now, Casting Circle is one of 2 abilities the Demonology Warlocks have that I would like to term them as the Zoning Caster. Now, Casting Circle allows the Warlock to stand within a circle that they put on the ground, which makes them immune to silences and interrupts for 10 seconds. It's on a 30-second cooldown, so you drop that down. The enemy team's not going to be able to interrupt what you're doing unless they have stun. So if you're put off stun DR, you're in a really good situation to be able to do a lot of damage uncontested by the enemy team being able to deal with this. Now, this is the first of 2 zoning abilities that are available on a Warlock, which make them so strong because not only can you have a very hard time killing a Warlock because of how tanky they are, but on top of this, they also have abilities like Casting Circle to prevent you from actually stopping their damage, which makes them a really tough target in a lot of situations to deal with. So in a lot of given case scenarios, Casting Circle is almost a given because of how strong it is. But if you do see the Warlock playing with another talent available on that road called Nether Ward, it's a 45-second cooldown that surrounds the caster with a shield that reflects all harmful spells cast on you. So in a case scenario where he's not playing Casting Circle or you see Nether Ward come out, you'll be, oh, hey, he doesn't have Casting Circle, we don't have to deal with this, just don't cast spells into Nether Ward. It's a green shield-looking icon that you see on the Warlock. So if you see that pop on the Warlock, don't do big damage into it. But do know that it's in place of their Casting Circle if you do see that. Finally, you also have Essence Drain, which is a Drain Life ability that stops the amount of damage that the target is doing to the Warlock up to 50% every time that you get a healing tick from Drain Life. Now, you don't see this played that much because Warlocks are already so tanky that they don't have to worry about it. 95% of the time, guys, you're going to see Casting Circle, but in the off chance that you see the other two, you know that they don't have Casting Circle available, which I think is good to keep in the back of your head. Now, one of the real defining choices that Warlocks have to make is in their 5th row of Honor talents, and this is the choice between Pleasure Through Pain and Call Fellhunter. Now, these two abilities are very much different and very much depend on which build you're going as a Demonology Warlock. Call Fellhunter allows you to have the ability to call out your Fellhunter and also interrupt that target for 6 seconds when you have that spell lock available as well too. This is something you actually have to talent into, so if you see Call Fellhunter come out and you get interrupted, know that you're going to be taking less damage. Now, from the other side, there's an option called Pleasure Through Pain. And while your Succubus is active, your shadow damage is increased by 15% in the cast time of your Shadow Bolt, and Demon Bolt, depending on which build you go there, is reduced by 0.5 seconds. So, if you're seeing the Warlock cast very fast, you know that they're playing with Pleasure Through Pain. If they're having very quick Shadow Bolts coming out, recognize that, and they're going to be doing 15% more shadow damage. So, Pleasure Through Pain is going to be more damage over time. They're just going to try to rot you down versus Call Fellhunter, where they have a little bit more utility but less damage, and they're going to hurt you with the interrupts. Now, finally, we're going to hit the iconic spell that everyone has been talking about going into the expansion, and that is Call Fellord. This is a 6th row talent that you take in your Honor talents. This is the ability where they summon a huge Legion Doomguard onto the ground. He has a circle below him, and if you stand within that circle, you are going to take 10% of your health when he is casting his Cleave ability, and it's also going to stun you as well too. This is probably the biggest zoning ability in World of Warcraft to date. Now, on top of having Casting Circle, which prevents people from standing on top of the Warlock and interrupting them, having Call Fellord on top of this, lasting for 30 seconds when used on a minute cooldown, is insane. Absolutely nuts. And this is why I would coin Demonology Warlocks as the zoning caster, because they very much dictate where the enemy team is allowed to stand. Whether or not they're using Call Fellord defensively on themselves to prevent people from being able to attack them or their healer, or using it offensively if a team's on the retreat to put it around the pillar and push their healer out of a very uncomfortable spot where they have to go out into the open. Very strong ability. I think that 80% of the time that you're going to see Demonology Warlocks choosing this, but there are a few other abilities on the off chance that they can use as well too. One being Call Observer, which is on a 1.5-minute cooldown, and it lasts for 20 seconds. Now what this does is it summons a little eye imp that's on the ground, and anyone within 20 yards, anytime a harmful spell is used, the Observer does 5% of the target's total health and shadow damage, So this can actually rot down a team very hard, especially if it's a caster cleave, but I think in a lot of situations that you will see Call Fellord over that because of how good the zoning ability is. On the off chance that you see Call Observer, do know that they won't have Call Fellord available, and vice versa. Finally, the other talent that you have available is Master Summoner, and this makes your Call Dreadstalkers, which is your baseline ability to summon out your dog, imps, things to attack the enemies. It makes that instant cast. And this is going to be for a long-term damage ramp-up build. I don't think you're going to see this often because of how strong Fellord is, but in some situations, if it's just going to be a ramp-up damage match, you may see Master Summoner. Just know that if they're summoning out their dog pets and they're not casting it, that is what they chose, and they won't have one of the other two talents available. One of the last things that I wanted to touch on for a minute before I wrap up this video was how happy I have been as a PvP player in this expansion, seeing the amount of changes that they have been doing to the PvP scene now that they have the PvP templates in place and are able to go in and tune abilities for PvP, specifically in combat areas. It's been awesome to see that Blizzard is keeping up and making a ton of changes, almost on a week-to-week basis, sometimes multiple times a week, whether it's hotfixes, changing something on a weekly basis. They've been doing a really good job listening to the players and also listening and watching the tournaments as well to see adjustments that they need to make to help balance out the ladder and make opportunities for a lot of classes to be played. And I know going into the expansion, a lot of people were really concerned with the pruning that was going on in the expansion that was going to cut down on class identity, but I actually think it's worked out way better having limited abilities, as it's helped open up a lot of different comps to be played and make some comps unique. even though your class might have lost a few abilities, it's really added into the flavor of being able to have a specific spec that you can play that works well with other classes. I don't feel like there are too many specs right now in PvP that have absolutely no class comp that they can play with and do well as. There's a lot of opportunities to jump in and play. So overall, I've been really happy with the PvP changes, and two of the changes that I wanted to knock out right away for you guys that will be affecting Demonology Warlocks, which I think are great. The first one is they are going to be swapping where Demon Skin falls on the talent tree with Demonic Circle. Now, Demon Skin was partnered with Mortal Coil and Shadow Fury as the CC row, and Demon Skin, if you guys remember, is the one that's giving us the passive regeneration, 1% absorption, up to 20% max, that plays in with our Soul Link and Soul Leech. This is going to be moved into the row with Dark Pact, which was our huge absorption shield. Now, this is going to help make Warlocks feel more like a killable target, whereas right now they're a standing turret, very much zoning when sitting in their Fel Lord and demonic circles, that it causes a lot of problems to be able to actually try to kill them. This will be helping make that decision a little bit easier for everyone on. You will be able to actually kill the Warlocks, and the nice thing about it is, more than anything, it'll actually open up some more CC for Warlocks, because, hey, now that they moved Demonic Circle up to Mortal Coil and Shadow Fury, you're probably going to actually use Mortal Coil and Shadow Fury, so it'll actually give Warlocks a little bit of utility. Even though they won't have quite as much of the tankiness that they've been playing with, it will give them a little bit of their CC back, and I think it's a good change for the games in terms of not having a class sit there and feel like it's unkillable. The second change they're making is a small change to Demonic Empowerment, and it's going to reduce the amount of health from 50% that you get when you use Demonic Empowerment on your minions to 20%, which I do think is a positive thing for the game, because you have all these minions that are getting so buffed out, they're just ramping up out of control, and I think it's a good change to help reduce some of the damage that's going for Demonology Warlocks. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. I wanted to really take some time to break down how the new Demonology spec works so that you guys have a better idea for what their general abilities are doing, and when you get into an arena situation, also being able to identify on the fly which build they're going with, as it'll give you a better recognition for not only what they're trying to accomplish as a team comp, but also how you can deal with their class. In a lot of situations, you're really not going to be able to kill Demonology Warlocks because of how tanky they are, but it will give you a much better understanding for what build type they're going with and how you can use your cooldowns differently to react to that. Appreciate all the support on the channel, guys. It's been absolutely nuts. We've doubled our subscribers over the past couple of weeks, which is just insane. Appreciate all the positive support on the channel. Like, comment, subscribe down below, guys. I'm out for the night. I'm exhausted. I will catch you guys on the next video or on the live stream in the afternoon. Keep it easy, everyone. Peace. Later, guys. Yo, yo, yo. What's going on, guys? It's Buns. Welcome back to the Road to Gladiator. Today, let's talk WoW PvP. Our topic is communication. Now, communication is around us in our everyday lives. We're human beings. We